Hey there, friends. I wanted to put this video out on the 30th anniversary of Vicki Weaver up at Ruby Ridge in Idaho being murdered in cold blood, actually shot in the back as she held her 10-month-old baby inside a house as she was shot through a door. I'm wondering if Joe Biden actually was the one instructing the murderer to shoot her. But nevertheless, let me give you a brief backstory on what happened. In 1971, Randy Weaver left the Army as a Green Beret. He married his wife, Vicki. They moved to a 20-acre piece of property and built a cabin in Ruby Ridge, Idaho. They raised 4 kids and homeschooled all of them. In 1985, Randy was attending an anti-government, quote-unquote, political rally. The FBI took note of him, and I'm sure everybody else who was there. In 1986, at another rally, he was approached by an undercover ATF informant. This guy was posing as an illegal firearms dealer. This ATF informant tried for 3 years to get Randy Weaver to make illegal firearms for him. And I say illegal firearms because that's the phrase that they use. Essentially sawing off 2 shotguns below the approved length by the ATF. Now, think about this. For 3 years, this informant was trying to convince Randy to break the law. Yeah. Finally, Randy got tired of him in 1989, 3 years later. So Randy agreed to saw off 2 barrels of 2 shotguns. It's reported that Randy actually didn't saw them off short enough to, quote, break the law at first, and the informant asked him, no, I need you to cut these down even more, because the informant didn't have anything on them because they weren't cut down below the recommended or allowed level per the ATF at that point. So, I mean, you talk about an entrapment issue. So in January of 1991, Randy Weaver was arrested. They set a court date for February of 1991, but in an error in the paperwork, it actually said that it was in March. So Randy missed the February date because of a clerical type error. They agreed to we'll just do it later on, do this court proceeding later on, and they gave Randy a new date. Well, this time Randy just refused to go. He said, no, I'm not going. On August 21st, 1992, 6 federal marshals were sent to scout out the area and find a position to ambush Randy to bring him in, because Randy was refusing to leave his cabin to the federal marshals that were trying to go there to get him to actually be arrested or agree to be arrested. The marshals were decked out in full military gear and were rummaging around in the woods around the cabin trying to find a way and a place that they could ambush the Weavers and bring Randy in. Well, the Weavers' dogs actually gave their position away, and Randy's 14-year-old son, Sammy, and a 24-year-old friend named Kevin Harris went out to investigate. When they went out to investigate, the marshals actually shot the dogs. Now, what is it with federal agents killing dogs and pets? I don't understand this. Is this a thing? Do they get like a pin or a badge or a medal? Is it like a dead dog medal? It just seems like a really recurring theme here. Well, Kevin and Sammy shot back at the marshals. They didn't know who these people were, rummaging around the woods, undisclosed, in full camo gear. The 14-year-old son was shot in the arm, and then as he was running back to the house, one of the marshals shot him in the back and killed him on the spot. The friend, Kevin Harris, shot back at the marshals, killing one of them. At this point, the federal marshals were pretty much surrounding the cabin. Everybody knew they were there, so they were just waiting for some negotiators to come the next day to talk to Randy and the family to try to get him out of the cabin. That night, Randy, Kevin, and 16-year-old Sarah, their daughter, left the cabin to go visit the corpse of Sammy in a nearby shed. This was because they needed the cover of darkness, obviously. They didn't think anybody was watching them, which maybe they knew, but they should have known that somebody was watching them. And at that point, a sniper shot Randy Weaver, again, in the back. Then Randy, Kevin, and Sarah ran back towards the cabin and closed the door. At this point, the sniper, Lon Horiuchi, shot through the door and hit Vicki Weaver in the head while she was holding her 10-month-old daughter, killing her instantly in her home. That was the last shot that was fired. Randy was too distraught to really do anything else. He eventually ended up surrendering. Actually, if you'll remember, renowned broadcaster Paul Harvey reached out to Weaver because he agreed with his stance, because Weaver had done nothing wrong other than being coaxed into cutting off the barrels of the 2 shotguns by an ATF informant. And Paul Harvey actually reached out to him and said, if you will surrender, I will actually pay for your legal representation in court. Now, you tell me if this man was innocent or guilty for everything that went down. This man goes to court, and out of all the charges they tried to heap on him, including sawing off the barrels of the 2 shotguns, you know what they got him for? They pinned his refusal to go to court on him And that was the only charge that actually stuck. In fact, after all the charges, except for that one that where he didn't appear in court, once all that took place, they actually sued the federal government. And between Randy and his 3 daughters, they got $3.1 million out of the federal government. So who do you think was wrong here? Guys, this is the kind of stuff that drives me nuts. Just because you think the federal government was out of line in this case, you are some kind of an extremist. Because you don't approve of the government's actions in this case. I'm shocked that the government approves of their own actions in this case. They never condemned this, even though they admitted guilt by paying the Weaver family and by dropping all the charges except for the failure to appear in court against Randy Weaver. They clearly were saying, my bad, but never did it openly, never apologized or anything like that. Yet, whenever you show sympathy for this family whose mom was killed, murdered in cold blood, shot in the head through a door as she held her 10-month-old child, you somehow are the bad person. Don't let them do this to us, guys. You can sympathize with this family, and rightfully so, because what happened to them was wrong.
I'm sorry, I thought this was America.